In this video, I'll introduce the second landmark Supreme Court decision on student expression. In the last video, we learned about the substantial disruption standard established in the Tinker case. This video is about the use of vulgar and offensive language in student speech. Does it meet the substantial disruption standard? Can school officials regulate those content in student speech? At a school assembly of approximately 600 high school students, Matthew Frazer delivered a speech nominating a fellow student for student elective office. In his speech, Fraser used some observer believed was a graphic sexual metaphor to promote the candidacy of his friend. The morning after the assembly, the assistant principal called Fraser into her office and notified him that the school considered his speech to have been a violation of the school disciplinary rule. The rule reads, "Conduct which materially and substantially interferes with the educational process is prohibited, including the use of obscene, profane language or gestures." Fraser was given a chance to explain his conduct, and he admitted that he deliberately used sexual innuendo in the speech. Fraser was then informed that he would be suspended for 3 days, and that his name would be removed from the list of candidates for graduation speaker at the school's commencement exercises. Fraser served 2 days of his suspension and was allowed to return to school on the 3rd day. In Fraser's case, the Supreme Court concluded that it was appropriate for the school to prohibit the use of vulgar and offensive language. Chief Justice Warren Burger distinguished between political speech, which the court previously had protected in Tinker decision, and the supposed sexual content of Fraser's message at the assembly. Justice Burger concluded that the First Amendment did not prohibit schools from regulating vulgar and lewd speech, since such discourse was inconsistent with the fundamental values of public school education. Chief Justice Burger wrote, "The essence of this statement of the objective of public education as the inculcation of fundamental values necessary to the maintenance of a democratic political system. These fundamental values of habits and manners of civility essential to a democratic society must of course include tolerance of divergent political and religious views, even when the views expressed may be unpopular." But these fundamental values must also take into account consideration of the sensibilities of others, and in the case of a school, the sensibilities of fellow students. The undoubted freedom to advocate unpopular and controversial views in schools and classrooms must be balanced against the society's countervailing interest in teaching students the boundaries of socially appropriate behavior. Even the most heated political discourse in a democratic society requires consideration for the personal sensibilities of the other participants and audiences. Surely, it is a highly appropriate function of public school education to prohibit the use of vulgar and offensive terms in public discourse. Indeed, the fundamental values necessary to the maintenance of a democratic political system disfavor the use of terms of debate highly offensive or highly threatening to others. Nothing in the Constitution prohibits the states from insisting that certain modes of expression are inappropriate and subject to sanctions. The inculcation of these values is truly the work of the schools. The determination of what manner of speech in the classroom or in school assembly is inappropriate probably rests with the school board. Justices Thurgood Marshall and John Paul Stevens dissented. Justice Marshall wrote, "I recognize that the school administration must be given wide latitude to determine what forms of conduct are inconsistent with the school's educational mission. Nevertheless, where speech is involved, we may not unquestioningly accept a teacher's or administrator's assertion that certain pure speech interfered with education. Here, the school district, despite a clear opportunity to do so, failed to bring in evidence sufficient to convince either of the two lower courts that education at Bethel School was disrupted by respondents' speech." Justice Stevens wrote, "We find it consistent that although 4 teachers delivered written statements to an assistant principal commenting on Frazer's speech, none of them suggested that the speech disrupted the assembly or otherwise interfered with school activities." The fact that respondent reviewed the text of his speech with 3 different teachers before he gave it does indicate that he must have been aware of the possibility that it would prove an adverse reaction, but the teachers' responses certainly did not give him any better notice of the likelihood of discipline than did the student handbook itself. Justice Stevens added, "Justice Sutherland taught us that a nuisance may be merely a right thing in the wrong place, like a pig in the parlor instead of the barnyard. Vulgar language, like vulgar animals, may be acceptable in some contexts and intolerable in others. Indeed, even ordinary, inoffensive speech may be wholly unacceptable in some settings." In this video, I introduced a U.S. Supreme Court decision on Fraser case. The issue in this case is whether a school district could regulate indecent speech in a public school setting. In this decision, Chief Justice Warren Burger distinguished between political speech, which the court previously had protected in Tinker decision, and the supposed sexual content of Frazer's message at the assembly. Justice Burger concluded that the First Amendment did not prohibit schools from regulating vulgar and lewd speech, since such discourse was inconsistent with the fundamental values of public school education.